Alright guys, this video is going to be going over the scale worksheet, which you will print out, and it's the last PDF in Unit 7, and essentially it looks like this. So what happens is you're going to be physically drawing these or redrawing them after you scale them to proportion using the scale listed below, which is 3/8 equals an inch. Now you have a precision / tolerance that you're allowed on these measurements when you measure to be close to mine. So with that being said and done, briefly go over the actual scale again. So remember, 3/8 must equal an inch. So we're going to zoom in here. And we're going to rotate this thing until we see our 3/8 scale. There it is. So I'm going to rotate it back. Now, just like we've learned a while ago, 0, small text, big text. So if it's 3/8 equals an inch, that means this distance right here must represent 1 inch. Which means if it's 1 inch, halfway must be half of an inch. Half of that must be a quarter. So now here's where it gets to being fun. So we know if this is a quarter of an inch and this is 0, halfway between, which is in between these two little lines, must represent an eighth. And this is where our tolerance gets into play, because I'm still trying to figure out the best scale to use with the size of blocks that we have. That way you guys can use a legit scale to measure, and I don't have to have 6 different sheets you guys can measure off. I'm just trying to save on paper. So with that being said, halfway between the little two ones is an eighth, and between the halfway between the little ones, the two little ones, and the 0 is a 16th. So that's why it gets hard to kind of judge. If it's right on a line, then it's either an eighth or it's a 16th. Whether it's an eighth or it's 3/16. Make sense? So if we zoom back out real quick, we'll just do the first one together so you guys can have an idea what's going on. Or not the full thing together, but kind of close to it. So a set of rules that you guys need to follow. And the first set of rules is, if you're going to dimension a circle, it must be done in diameter, which means you got to measure across the whole thing. And if you're going to be measuring a radius like it is down here, it must be measured radius, which means from the center to the outside edge. So back to here. The whole point is you're going to fill in the blanks, get all your blocks covered up and filled in with what you think they are, and then come check your answers. Now, if you did this right, you're either going to have a whole number, you're going to have half of an inch, you will have a quarter inch, an eighth, or a 16th. If you are counting those dashes, you will come up with 12ths, which is wrong. Or you could come up with thirds, which is wrong. If you do not have either one of these fractions or whole numbers, you are reading the scale wrong. So back to this. Here we are. I will physically measure these with the scale, and we'll do a couple of them together, and we'll see what they read. Let's do the circle, for instance, for the first time. Here's my 3/8 scale. I'm going to set the 0 on that end, and I'm going to look at it. Remember, small text, not big text. Big text goes with the scale on the left. So I'm at a 2. Let's get in there a little closer for you guys. Okay, so I'm at the 2, so I'm going to move it over. And now I'm going to physically read it. Notice, it is not on either of the small lines, and it's not on the quarter. Remember, this is an inch. There's a half of an inch. There's a quarter of an inch. There's a eighth of an inch. So my answer I'm going to write here in diameter is going to be 2 and an eighth of an inch. Now let's do the second one. Remember, here's my dimension from here to here, or from here to there. So here we go. There's my 0. That's 14, but in this scale it's 1. So I'm going to push it back. Now I'm going to read subfractions of an inch. Notice it's not quite in the middle. It's kind of leaning more to this side, and that's why we have that tolerance. So if this is a half of an inch, this is 3/4, which is also equal to 6/8. This must be 7/8, right? So if it's not 7/8, 7/8 is actually 14/16, which means this must be 13/16. So I'll physically write my answer 13/16. So you're going to go through this entire thing, fill in every single square, and then you're going to come check your answers with me. And then we're going to find out which ones you need to fix, and I'll physically come over and I'll highlight the ones that you need to go back and look at. Now, keep in mind, these will print differently for each person, which means the scales could get bigger or smaller depending on how it's printed, and it has nothing to do with what you're doing. So if I highlight something that you disagree with, then you simply just go, sit down, reread it, and come back to dispute it. And then I read it, and then I realize that you're right or you're wrong. One or the other way, it's good to go. So there you are. That is what you're doing for the scaled worksheet PDF. Fill out all your answers, come back to get them checked. After you're done with that, you will physically draw every single one of these for the amount of points that are required here. And that's the second video you can watch just to get an overview of what I'm expecting from you.